Chapter 16 of Gray Lensman by E. Smith. Chapter 16. The carnage over, Kinnison made his way to the control board, which was more or less standard in type. There were, however, some instruments new to him, and these he examined with care, tracing their leads throughout their lengths with his sense of perception before he touched a switch. Then he pulled out 3 plungers, one after the other. There was a jarring thunk, and a reversal of the inexplicable, sickening sensations he had experienced previously. They ceased. The ships, solid now and still locked side by side, lay again in open, familiar space. "Back to the Dauntless," Kinnison directed tersely, and they went, taking with them the bodies of the slain patrolmen. The 10 who had been tortured were dead. 12 more had perished under the mental forces or the physical blows of the overlords. Nothing could be done for any of them, save to take their remnants back to Tellus. "What do we do with this ship? Let's burn her out, huh?" asked von Buskirk. "Not on Tuesdays. The College of Science would fry me to a crisp in my own lard if I did," Kinnison retorted. "We take her in, as is. Where are we, Worsel? Have you and the navigator found out yet?" Way out, almost out of the galaxy," Worsel replied, and one of the computers recited a string of numbers, then added, "I don't see how we could have come so far in that short a time." "How much time was it? Got any idea?" Kinnison asked pointedly. "Why, by the chronometers—" "Oh." The man's voice trailed off. "You're getting the idea. Wouldn't have surprised me much if we'd been clear out of the known universe. Hyperspace is funny that way, they say. Don't know a thing about it myself, except that we were in it for a while, but that's enough for me." Back to Tellus they drove at the highest practicable speed, and at Prime Base scientists swarmed over and throughout the Boskonian vessel. They tore down, rebuilt, measured, analyzed, tested, and conferred. "They got some of it. All of it, they say, except the stuff that is of real importance," Thorndyke reported to his friend Kinnison one day. "Old Cardine is mad as a cat eagle about your report of that vortex or tunnel or whatever it was. He says your lack of appreciation of the simplest fundamentals is something pitiful, or words to that effect. He's going to blast you to a cinder as soon as he gets hold of you." "Well, we can't all be first violiners in the orchestra. Some of us got to push wind through the trombone," Kinnison quoted philosophically. "I done my darndest. How's a guy going to report accurately on something he can't hear, see, feel, smell, taste, or sense? But I heard that they've solved that thing of the interpenetrability of the 2 kinds of matter. What's the lowdown on that?" "Cardine says it's simple. Maybe it is, but I'm a technician myself, not a mathematician. As near as I can get it, the overlords and their stuff were treated or conditioned with an oscillatory wave of some kind, so that under the combined action of the fields generated by the ship and the shore station, all their substance was rotated almost out of space. Not out of space exactly either, more like, say, very nearly 180 degrees out of phase, so that 2 bodies, one untreated, our stuff, could occupy the same place at the same time without perceptible interference. The failure of either force, such as your cutting the ship's generators, would relieve the strain." "It did more than that. It destroyed the vortex." "But it might at that," the lensman went on thoughtfully. "It could very well be that only that one special force, exerted in the right place relative to the home station generator, could bring the vortex into being. But how about that heavy stuff common to both planes, or phases, of matter? Synthetic, they say. Not as dense as it appears. That's due largely to field action, too. They're working on it now. Thanks for the dope. I've got to flit. Got a date with Haynes. I'll see Cardine later and let him get it off his chest." And the lensman strode away toward the port admiral's office. Haynes greeted him cordially, then, at sight of the storm signals flying in the Gray Lensman's eyes, he sobered. "QX," he said wearily. "If we have to go over this again, unload it, Kim." 22 good men, Kinnison said harshly. "I murdered them, just as surely, if not quite as directly, as though I brained them with a space axe." In one way, if you look at it fanatically enough, yes, the older man admitted, much to Kinnison's surprise. I'm not asking you to look at it in a broader sense, because you probably can't, yet. Some things you can do alone, some things you can do even better alone than with help. I've never objected, nor shall I ever object to your going alone on such missions, however dangerous they may be. That is, and will be, your job. What you are forgetting, in the luxury of giving way to your emotions, is that the patrol comes first. The patrol is of vastly greater importance than the lives of any man or group of men in it. But I know that, sir, protested Kinnison. You have a peculiar way of showing it, then, the Admiral broke in. You say that you killed 22 men? Admitting it for the moment, which would you say was better for the patrol? To lose those 22 good men in a successful and productive operation, or to lose the life of one unattached lensman without gaining any information or any other benefit whatever thereby? Why, if you look at it that way, sir. Kinnison still knew that he was right, but in that form the question answered itself. That is the only way it can be looked at, the old man returned flatly. No heroics on your part, no maudlin sentimentality. Now, as a lensman, is it your considered judgment that it is best for the patrol that you traverse that hyperspatial vortex alone, or with all the resources of the Dauntless at your command? Kinnison's face was white and strained. He could not lie to the port admiral, nor could he tell the truth, for the dying agonies of those fiendishly tortured boys still racked him to the core. But I can't order men into any such death as that, he broke out finally. You must, Haines replied inexorably. Either you take the ship as she is, or else you call for volunteers, and you know what that would mean. Kinnison did, too well. The surviving personnel of the two Britannias, the full present complement of the Dauntless, the crews of every other ship in base, practically everybody on the reservation, Haines himself certainly, even Lacey and old von Hohendorf, everybody, even or especially if they had no business on such a trip as that, would volunteer. And every man-jack of them would yell his head off at being left out. Each would have 1,000 reasons for going. QX, I suppose. You win. Kinnison submitted, although with ill grace, rebelliously. But I don't like it, nor any part of it. It clogs my jets. I know it, Kim. Haines put a hand upon the boy's shoulder, tightening his fingers. We all have to do it. It's part of the job. But remember, always, lensman, that the patrol is not an army of mercenaries or conscripts. Any one of them, just as you would yourself, would go out there knowing that it meant death in the torture chamber of the overlords, if in so doing he knew that he could help to end the torture and the slaughter of non-combatant men, women, and children that is going on now. Kinnison walked slowly back to the field, silenced but not convinced. There was something screwy somewhere, but he couldn't. "Just a moment, young man," came a sharp, irritated voice. "I have been looking for you. At what time do you propose to set out for that which is being so loosely called the hyperspatial vortex?" He pulled himself out of his abstraction to see Sir Austin Cardine. Testy, irritable, impatient, and vitriolic of tongue, he had always reminded Kinnison of a frantic hen attempting to mother a brood of ducklings. "Hi, Sir Austin. Tomorrow, hour 15. Why?" The lensman had too much on his mind to be ceremonious with this mathematical nuisance. "Because I find that I must accompany you, and it is most damnably inconvenient, sir. The society meets Tuesday week, and that ass Weingard will—" "Huh?" Kinnison ejaculated. "Who told you that you had to go along, or that you even could, for that matter?" "Don't be a fool, young man," the peppery scientist advised. "It should be apparent even to your feeble intelligence that after your fiasco Your inexcusable negligence in not reporting even the most elementary tensorial analysis of that extremely important vortex. Someone with at least a rudimentary brain should—" "Hold on, Sir Austin," Kinnison interrupted the harangue. "Do you mean to say that you want to come along just to study the mathematics of that damn—" "Just to study it!" shrieked the old man, almost tearing his hair. "You dolt, you blockhead! My God, why should anything with such a brain be permitted to live? Don't you even know, Kinnison, that in that vortex lies the solution of one of the greatest problems in all science?" "Never occurred to me," the lensman replied, unruffled by the old man's acid fury. He had had weeks of it at the conference. "It is imperative that I go." Sir Austin was almost acerbic, but the intensity of his passion was abating. "I must analyze those fields, their patterns, interactions, and reactions myself. Unskilled observations are useless, as you learn to your sorrow, and this opportunity is priceless. Possibly it is unique, since the data must be not only complete but also entirely authoritative. I myself must go. That is clear, is it not, even to you?" "No. Hasn't anybody told you that everybody aboard is simply flirting with the Undertaker?" "Nonsense. I have subjected the affair, every phase of it, to a rigid statistical analysis. The probability is significantly greater than zero. Oh, ever so much greater. Almost .19, in fact, that the ship will return with my notes." "But listen, Sir Austin," Kinnison explained patiently. "You won't have time to study the generators at the other end, even if the folks there felt inclined to give us the chance. Our object is to blow the whole thing clear out of space." Of course, certainly. The mere generating mechanisms are immaterial. Analysis of the forces themselves are the sole desiderata. Vectors, tensors, performance of mechanisms in reception, ethereal and subethereal phenomena, propagation, extinction, phase angles, complete and accurate data upon hundreds of such items. Slighting even one would be calamitous. Having this material, however, the mechanism of energization becomes a mere detail. Complete solution and design inevitable, absolute, childishly simple. "Oh," the lensman was slightly groggy under the barrage. "The ship may get back, but how about you, personally?" "What difference does that make?" Cardine snapped fretfully. "Even if, as is theoretically probable, we find that communication is impossible, my notes have a very good chance, very good indeed, of getting back. You do not seem to realize, young man, that to science that data is necessary. It is so evident that the persons or beings who are operating it do not know or are at least not utilizing 1% of its potentialities. They stumbled upon it, blundered into it. Someone with at least a rudimentary knowledge of science must analyze it so that the conference may exhaust its real possibilities." Kinnison looked down at the wispy little man in surprise. Here was something he had never suspected. Cardine was a scientific wizard, he knew. That he had a phenomenal mind, there was no shadow of doubt. But the lensman had never thought of him as being physically brave. It was not merely courage, he decided. It was something bigger, better, transcendent. An utter selflessness, a devotion to science so complete that neither physical welfare nor even life itself could be given any consideration whatever. "You think, then, that this data is worth sacrificing the lives of 400 men, including yours and mine, to get?" Kinnison asked earnestly. "Certainly, or 100 times that many," Cardine snapped testily. "You heard me say, did you not, that this opportunity is priceless, and may very well be unique? QX, you can come." And Kinnison went on into the Dauntless. Kinnison went to bed, wondering. Maybe the chief was right. He woke up, still wondering. Perhaps he was taking himself too seriously. Perhaps he was, as Haines had more than intimated, indulging in mock heroics. He prowled about. The two ships of space were still locked together. They would fly together to and along that dread tunnel, and he had to see that everything was on the green. He went into the wardroom. One young officer was thumping the piano right tunefully, and a dozen others were rendering the atmosphere with joyous song. In that room, any formality or as-you-were signal was unnecessary. The whole bunch fell upon their commander gleefully and with a complete lack of restraint, in a vociferous hilarity very evidently neither forced nor assumed. Kinnison went on with his tour. What was it? He demanded of himself. Haines didn't feel guilty. Cardine was worse. He would kill 40,000 men, including the lensmen and himself, without batting an eye. These kids didn't give a damn. Their fellows had been slain by the overlords. The overlords had in turn been slain. All square, QX. Their turn next? So what? Kinnison himself did not want to die. He wanted to live, but if his number came up, that was part of the game. What was it, this willingness to give up life itself for an abstraction? Science? The patrol? Civilization? Notoriously ungrateful mistresses? Why? Some inner force? Some compensation-defying sense, reason, or analysis? Whatever it was, he had it too. Why deny it to others? What in all the 9 hells of Valeria was he griping about? Maybe I'm nuts, he concluded, and gave the word to blast off. To blast off, to find and to traverse wholly that awful hypertube, at whose far terminus there would be lurking no man knew what. End of chapter 16.